Awesome. So we are now recording. Hi guys. So we have Harsha,
Hey,
Ruchel, Subhash here, all in black and white, and we're going to be doing the first quest together. I think all three, Harsha, Ruchel, Subhash, have experience in some form of programming. Like all three of them have like slightly different experience levels, but all of them have like at least some experience with Python, JavaScript, Java, whatever. And yeah, we're just going to dive straight in. Uh, all three of them, even though they're part of Questbook, they've never done the quests before. So you're going to be seeing them live in action. And yeah, this is going to be the first in the series. Let's get started. So what I'm going to do, Harsha, Ruchel, Subhash, is I have all your screens here. I think I can jump around. So this is Harsha's screen. This is Ruchel's screen is already open the quest and Subhash's screen is on the Notion doc. Awesome. So yeah, I'll be jumping around. I think Harsha is going to take lead today.
yep.
He'll be reading aloud, and we'll do the quests along with him.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Super. So I've just opened questbook.app and I'm tapping on learn and earn now. So a starting point has already been recommended here. So I'm just starting it here. Start with building a bank with Solidity that isn't a toy for beginners.
Yep. Let's go.
Introduction. Welcome to Solidity Joyride Quest. In this quest, you will learn all about the basics of developing applications on Ethereum. We don't require you to have any background on Ethereum development. If you're a developer in any programming language and you have heard the terms Ethereum, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, etc., you should be good. So I've heard about Ethereum and blockchain, and I know some basic programming languages like Python, JavaScript. So that is my prior experience. In this quest, we'll be developing a personal bank account using Ethereum. Oh, okay. So I'll have my own bank account, just like ICICI SBI, where you can deposit money and earn interest. Guess what? This won't be a toy product that won't work in the real world. It will be something you can start deploying in the real world directly. You will quickly see how Ethereum and Solidity are so much easier to develop applications that involve transacting real money, unlike any traditional programming language you would have seen. Okay, so Solidity is the programming language which you would be using to deploy my personal bank.
Correct.
Solidity has some constructs and data structures, okay, just like trees, graphs, data structures built into the built into it that makes building financial applications simple and secure. From this statement, I understand. So these data structures are optimized for financial applications.
Correct, correct. So on typically on like JavaScript or Python and stuff like that, you have the data structures like you have I don't know, dictionary, you have integer, you have stuff like that, right? But there's no data structure for storing money, right?
Right.
So Solidity has a special data structure for storing money directly.
Got it. By the end of this quest, you will be able to deploy a bank that can start transacting real money. So this can be any money, is it? Like even in dollars, any currency, or is it only cryptocurrency?
We'll see. We'll see. So of course, everything will be in the cryptocurrency world. Dollars is non-cryptocurrencies, right? So we will have to see what kind of money it's going to be. But I think we'll touch base on that once. Yeah, once we reach there.
Well, banks are some of the most sophisticated softwares to build because of how much security is needed. Using Solidity, you'll be able to write a secure bank that is as secure as the most secured bank on the planet with less than 30 lines of code. Okay. I think that's the interesting part so far. Ethereum is the underlying blockchain infrastructure, and Solidity is a programming language to write applications. Can you explain this Ethereum? Like, what do you mean by blockchain infrastructure? Can you draw any parallel to Web2 world?
Yeah, yeah. So think about um, EC2 on AWS, right? So you have a VM that's running on AWS where you can deploy your servers,
Okay.
and you write your server code in JavaScript or Python. So instead of AWS EC2, you'll be using blockchain, and instead of Python or JavaScript, you're going to be using Solidity.
Okay. And instead of AWS EC2, Ethereum, right?
Yeah, Ethereum's blockchain, yes.
Cool. Okay. At the end of this quest, you'll know how to build contracts that are almost as good as contracts written by projects like Pool Together and Compound, which are multi-billion-dollar projects right now. What is a contract?
Contract is the program that you write on Solidity. So the program that you write on Solidity is called a contract. So you might have heard the term smart contract.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's really just the program that you write on Ethereum.
Like on Python and JavaScript, we just add .py files or .js files, right?
Yeah, so
We never
yeah,
have any.
on Java you have classes, right?
Right.
Yeah, so Python and JavaScript do not have a mandatory overarching data structure, but
Hmm.
Java, for example, has classes that every program must be a class. So similar in Ethereum, every contract has to be a contract.
Every contract is a smart contract. Like these terms can be introduced.
Yeah. There is no dump contract or anything like that. They're
Cool.
just
Pool Together and Compound, what do they do? Compound, I know, is like for the interest thing. Am I right? And Pool
yeah, you
Together.
should. Why don't you Google it? I think
So in the meantime, Maddie, for Ethereum, Solidity is the only programming language, or can we also write code in the mainstream programming language like Python or even JavaScript or any other languages?
No, the answer is no. There are a couple of other programming languages that have been built for this. There's Viper, there is something else also, I forget the name. There are a few other programming languages, but Solidity is the go-to. However, you can't write code in Python or JavaScript because the constructs are totally different. Like on Python, you don't have the constructs of money. You don't have the constructs of an account. So it's really hard to map. However, there are a few projects that seem to be trying to do it, but I don't think that's anything successful yet.
Or knowing any of these programming languages will give an edge.
JavaScript seems to be one of the programming languages which will give you an edge, not because it's used in Solidity, but Solidity is based on roughly JavaScript, right? Like it does look like JavaScript, if nothing else. So there's some advantage over there, but the bigger advantage is if you want to build the UI, right? So the support for JavaScript is much richer than any other programming language right now.
Got
So
it.
when you want to get into the space of, so right now we're going to be writing the backend code, for example, right? We'll first learn how to write backend code, then we'll figure out how to write front end code. So when we get to front end code, if you know JavaScript, it is definitely an advantage.
Sure.
So from Pool Together, I understand we can just put in our money there. And as long as we are involved in the community, we get some prizes and our money grows with some interest rate.
Yeah, so that's not the relevant part. Why don't you open compound.finance, the other tab, just go to the top. Is it up? Yeah. So this is the most important thing. Like, look at the amount of money compound is even. Just look at those numbers, right? Like, I don't know how big is that number. 1 million, 1 billion, I guess, or 1 million something. 1 million BTC. That's a lot of money that compound um is managing, right? So it's like assets under management kind of a
Right.
thing. And all of this money is being managed by Compound by writing a smart contract, which is actually not very complex. All of this money is being managed by a smart contract that has been written definitely not more than a few hundred lines of code.
Is it just because of the concised version of code this got popular? Like, is that why Solidity is getting a lot of attention? Like, you'll be able to write complex code in a simple manner?
What would have been complex in the Web2 world is actually pretty simple because, like, for example, something as simple as sending money, right? Like, if I want to write a program that sends money from Ruchil to Subhash, right? It's hard. Like, you have to integrate with some payment gateway. You need to get some approvals. You need to, I don't know, have some OTP mechanism, password mechanism, some like 10 different things you have to do for Rojil to be able to send money to Subhash. However, on Ethereum, because money is a primitive data type on the programming language itself, you can just say, hey, money.send, right?
Got it.
Money.transfer, whatever.
So basically, programming language is taking care of all the security aspect of.
Correct. So every programming language has some data related decisions they make, right? Like, for example, not necessarily data, but the paradigm itself. For example, JavaScript kind of optimizes a lot for concurrency. Like, if you want to write concurrent code, something like JavaScript or Golang, so those optimize for that. However, Python on the other side kind of optimizes for readability, right? Every programming language has like slightly different constructs which are like which kind of shine in that particular programming language, some particular use cases that will shine in those use cases, in those programming languages. So Solidity is really well fit for everything related to money transfers. So that's something that's inherently a part of the programming language itself, unlike any other programming language you would have ever seen before.
Got it. So at the end of this quest, we'll be able to write contracts like pool together or compound, like
Yeah, in
something
fact,
which can enable.
Yeah, we're actually going to write something that's as good as compound.
There are multiple tracks you can pick from in later quests, ranging from building your own DeFi, decentralized finance projects, security auditing other contracts, and earn some money along the way. Okay.
A question around like the selection of projects. So is Ethereum used only in the DeFi space or outside of it as well? That's number one. And number second is within the DeFi space as well. Like, why did you choose building a bank versus like any other project?
Hey, yeah, good question. I think Ethereum, because of the fact that money is an inherent part of the programming language, the initial projects that have gotten built have to do a lot with money, right? So that's the kind of first industry to have boomed in the Ethereum space, which is DeFi, right? So DeFi is definitely the biggest section within the Ethereum ecosystem. But there are other things also that are beginning to come up. For example, DAOs is big, right? So decentralized autonomous organizations. How can you run an entire company in a completely decentralized fashion? So that is something that is beginning to gain some traction as well right now. But yeah, DeFi right now is definitely hotter than most others. Sorry, the second question was why did I choose building a bank? Yeah, like that was the first thing that came to my mind when I thought of money, right? So when you think of money, you probably think of like, I don't know, a bank or maybe a wallet or something like that. So yeah, I picked a bank. I could have gone with a wallet as well. I actually was deciding between the two. No real reason. If I picked the other, you'd have asked the same question anyways. No good logical reason there.
Got it. I'm moving on to the next subquest. Remix. We will be writing all our code in a new IDE, development environment called Remix. It sucks, but it's the best editor for Solidity available out of the box. It is a browser-based IDE, so you don't have to install any software to get started. Okay. Remix is a code editor for Solidity. It also runs a toy blockchain that we'll be using to deploy our first contract. Most of the steps are automated in Remix. In a later quest, we'll install all the components by hand to understand better what is happening under the hood. So basically, there is no installation as like it's needed. This is equivalent of IntelliJ. Right?
Yeah, correct. If you use any
IDs.
ID, yeah, it'll seem familiar. Why don't you just click on that link and do that?
Okay. Solidity optimism.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, like the disclaimer up front was it sucks. Like don't worry about this. We'll look at various elements inside this one by one.
Got it. And this is a workspace, is it? We'll be working in this.
Yeah, all the code on the left. Just try opening one of them. Yeah, and code on the right. That's pretty much that you need to know. Everything that you need to know.
Got it. And how do we compile this?
Why don't we go back to the quest? We'll go step by step.
Cool. I have nothing else here. I'm moving to the next subquest.
Yeah.
First contract, get contract balance. I'll open this.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Like you might have to like switch between the two tabs to understand.
Okay.
I think you have opened some of these before. You can open the link on a private browser.
Is the
Mari,
file name
one question.
Are you able to see
Yeah.
the screen, or do you want me to?
No, I can't see your screen.
1 second. I'll just share it.
Yeah, while the
Yeah,
sharing is
Subhash.
happening, is there a way we can share? We can save our work on Remix.
Yeah, it's auto saved. Even if you close the browser, open it back, yeah, it'll work.
Okay. And what if, so if I did like a bunch of programs on, it's still in a test program, right? How can I take it live or take it to the main net from here?
Oh, so taking it to the mainnet is actually a little complex. Thanks for the question, but I think we touch upon that probably not even the second quest. I think the third quest, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
It's a little complex. Like we'll first try to work with the toy version first, and then kind of move to a actual deployment.
Sure.
So I think
Actually, that will
for the
also
entirety.
answer. Yeah, that will also answer, like, if I do part of the work on this laptop and want to access the same code from from another laptop remotely.
Yeah, that'll be an issue. Yes.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
So I have opened this file under contracts. So .sol is a Solidity file.
Correct.
Like .py, .js equivalent.
Yeah.
This is the first contract. Also notice the first line pragma. This is basically a way to tell Remix which version of Solidity to use. Like, what do you mean by version of Solidity to use? Like,
yeah, that's what the next sentence talks about.
Okay. Most programming languages encourages this, but aren't required. But in Solidity, it is required because the development of Solidity is so fast that a new version is released almost every week. Okay. And things keep breaking. To be sure, the Solidity compiler version should be mentioned on top of the file. So, okay. This 0.70, 0.90 is Solidity version, is it?
Correct.
The next thing you'd notice is the keyword contract. Programs on Solidity are contracts. A contract keyword is exactly similar to the class keyword you would have encountered on JavaScript, Python, Java. Lastly, the function that we have written in this class, also known as contract, is to get account balance. It returns a uint, unsigned integer, a slightly different syntax here. This one?
No, for the function on line 7. You define the data type a little differently. as against what you would do on a JavaScript, I guess.
Got it.
Oh, sorry, in JavaScript, you don't even define the return type. On Java, you do, or on TypeScript,
So
you do.
here we have already defined total contract balance to be of the data type unsigned integer, right?
Correct.
And we are returning this, but still we have to again say that, hey, this function return value is unsigned integer.
Yeah. So this is a typed programming language, unlike JavaScript and Python. So everywhere you need to mention the data types.
Got it.
Mhm.
Got it.
On Python and JavaScript, you can like do away with it. In fact, Python
But
does not
in
even
none
have
of
data
this.
types. But on a typed programming language like Java, for example, like everywhere you need to mention, hey, int. Yeah, similar.
Got it. So lastly, the function that we have written in this class, also known as contract, is to get account balance. It returns an unsigned integer. Different syntax here. This is one place where Solidity shines. A class can accept and store money natively without having to integrate payment gateways like Stripe or Razorpay. So where did we use the money part? Sorry, I think this zooming is a bit difficult here.
We're not yet using money actually. We were just saying that hey, there is something called contract balance. Right now it's zero. How do we update it and all? We are not looking at it. But hey,
Got it.
there is a balance that we can maintain going forward.
Cool.
We've not done it yet. Yeah.
Cool. Every user and every program on Ethereum has an account. Every program also has an account? I didn't get that.
Yeah, like just like a user can have an account, right? Like you can have an account into which I can send money. In the traditional world, I mean, right? Like I can do a bank transfer, I can do a ATM or whatever. So
Right.
you understand a person's bank account, right? A
Yeah.
person's account. But on Solidity, every program also has an account. So you can send money to a program, and the program can write some logic as to what to do with that money.
Got it. So, like, where do we use that address? Like now I understand that this program also has an address, right?
Correct.
And
So so it'll have an address, and Harsha, the person, will also have an address, right? If I can send money, $10 to Harsha, the user's account, or I can also send money directly to the program that you've written, and then that program can do whatever it wants with the money.
Got it.
what is the difference between a program, a contract, and an account? Are these three linked?
A program, contract, and account, is it?
Yeah.
Program and contract are same.
Okay. And are
Yeah.
they okay? Got it.
And account, so there is an account for every program.
An account for a contract as well?
Yeah, like contract and program are same. So
Got it.
Yeah. Is there a way to look at the account details on the
yeah,
remix?
yeah, we'll come to that.
An account is identified by an address. It is unique for each account and looks something like 0x123. I'm assuming this is equivalent to IP address kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
This account can hold money. Okay. The little program we have written will also have an account by default. Actually, this is sounding a little new, to be honest. The program having an account, like I'm not able to, we never had a address for a, maybe if we are running code somewhere on some server, we would have had IP address of that server, but never to that code file, right?
So imagine, imagine you wrote a program on Python, and you are giving access to Python that program to access your bank account. Like the Python program can like send money arbitrarily from your bank account to whoever it wants, like some other bank account, right? That's a kind of a program that you can write on Python. if you
Right.
kind of integrate the APIs with the bank and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So in essence, what is happening is the Python program is managing your money,
Correct.
and that money exists in an account.
Hmm.
But right now, in a traditional bank, that account is linked with your whatever SSN number or Aadhaar number, whatever.
Right.
Instead of having an Aadhaar number of a person, now that bank has an Aadhaar card of a program. There are two accounts now. Like one account in which you're saying, hey, this is going to be accessed only by Harsha, the person, and then this is the second account in which only the program can send money from, can manage that money in this account. The only way to manage the money is through the program. Like if you want to send money to somebody else from the account of the program, you have to run the program and then the program will send the money.
So if I have to let's assume I have an account, I have some money in the account. I have written a smart contract. That smart contract also has an account, and Ruchil has an account, and Ruchil has a smart contract, some smart contract which has an account. If I have
Correct.
to just transfer money from my account to his account, I can write an independent contract and do it, right? It need not traverse through these contacts.
Yeah. You can directly also send. You don't need to go through any contract. That's also possible.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And if I just want to put money into that program for some reason, I can do that as well.
Correct.
Whatever money we send to this account, the program is allowed to do whatever it wants with those funds. Okay. It can transfer it into any other account. It can burn the money or just sit on that cash and do nothing. Using Solidity, we can write the logic of how the program will use the money in the account. We have not sent any money to our contract account yet, but in the next few subquests, you'll see how we can write the logic to receive money and use those funds to build a smart bank account.
Is a contract an analogy to the bank, or is it the bank? Because that's what we do, right? Like it's an entity in the real world. It's like bank is something that we send money, get money, and it's an entity. So here is contract doing the same rule, like same thing. Like we're sending money to the contract, taking money. But the problem is, so the good part is that it's like programmable versus the real world bank is not.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can write whatever rules. Like if somebody deposits money, do this. And so those kind of rules are like super easy to write. Like we will look at that in just a bit.
Got it. So I'm moving on to the next sub question. Subhash, you have any questions here?
No. That's good.
Compile, deploy, contract address. Unlike JavaScript to Python, Solidity code needs to be compiled before it can be deployed or run. On the left bar, look at the compile button and hit compile 1.sol. Same file is it?
Yeah. Oh, it's not 1.sol. I think it's 3.sol typo.
Here you might see some warning. That's okay. Look for the compile button and hit compile. Like hovering it on it will show.
Yeah, it should show that. This is the compile base.
Okay. Solidity compiler, right?
Yeah.
It has thrown some warning.
Yeah, there are a couple of warnings. It's like a known thing. This is not a good way to write a program, but I think this is like a good starting point. We will fix those warnings later when we learn a little bit more.
Got it. So once the compilation is successful, we'll deploy it. How do I know if it's successful?
Yeah, like you see the warnings, right? So that's happening only after the successful compilation.
Okay. I think if I have some, it shows.
So it says compiler metadata is modifying artifacts.
Yeah, correct. So you don't have to worry about it. That's something for Remix.
Okay. If it's not compelling, it shows something like this, is it?
Yes, let me come back to your screen. Sure. Yeah, I am on your screen.
Cool. Okay, once the compilation is successful, we'll deploy it, tap on deploy and transaction button on the left sidebar.
Right below it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
further left,
Oh, here, this one is it?
the one above, yeah.
Deploy?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Before we deploy, there are a few
Awesome.
here.
Yeah.
There are a few accounts and a gas limit. Can you quickly explain, what these things are? Like there is a JavaScript, VM London. Which one should I select?
Sure. Let everything be default. Like, don't change anything other than the deploy button. Like, just tap on the deploy button. But I'll still explain things from the top. The environment. Harsha, can you like tap on that drop down? The one on the top. Yeah, JavaScript. No.
Okay.
Just yeah. So you'll see JavaScript VM, you say injected Web3 provider, something like that. So basically JavaScript VM is a toy blockchain that has been built by Remix. And the other two are more like mainnet, testnet, like actual deployment. So if you want to do an actual deployment, we will select something like um, injected Web3 from this dropdown. But since right now we're just going to be building on the toy blockchain, we'll let it be at VM London.
Otherwise, it would have been injected Web3, is it?
Yeah. For real injected Web3, it could also be Web3 provider, so that there's a subtle difference. But yeah, we can come back to that when we're actually deploying. But the thing that you need to know is basically JavaScript VM London stands for a toy blockchain that has been deployed by Remix for you.
Got it.
Right.
What is the account?
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, tap on that drop down for yeah. So I think it's all explained in the next few lines on the quest.
Okay. Should I head back to the quest?
Yeah, you can head back.
So it says before we actually deploy. Okay, we have deployed the contract now, right? So this is success.
Yes.
Before we actually deploy, we should look at the few concepts that are new to Solidity and Ethereum. On the top, you'll see that there are a few accounts for you to choose from. Remix has automatically created 20 accounts for you and preloaded it with 100 Ether money.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, all of them have 100 Ether, except the one which is ticked already.
Yeah, you've already, just continue reading, I guess.
However, these 100 Ether are toy Ethers available. Okay. Ether is currency for Ethereum.
Correct.
So Ethereum is not a cryptocurrency. Ether is a cryptocurrency.
Correct.
However, these 100 ETH are toy Ethers available to use only within the Remix interface and only for testing. Then hit deploy. We have deployed already. There are various other options on the screen that we'll ignore for now. We'll come back to them in the next few subquests. Ethereum is a computer owned by everyone. Anyone can run code on that computer. We have to deploy code to be able to run on Ethereum. Anyone in the world can start calling the functions in the smart contracts that you have deployed immediately. You can even charge people for the same. Remix has an inbuilt toy version of Ethereum, which is where we'll be deploying first. So if I say, for example, deploy this code and even Ruchil or Subhash can call those functions.
Correct. Not today, but from like tomorrow, because we need to make a small tweak to it. But yeah, technically, yes, that's the idea. The moment you hit deploy, anybody can start calling those functions from all over the world.
And I can charge money if they are calling those functions.
Yes.
Oh,
you can say that, hey, I will tell you some information, or I'll do some computation only if you pay me like $10. That's something we can do.
Got it. Got it. 10 ethers, like
And,
only all payments and
code-
only cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, is the code visible to everyone?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that um, like all the code is public, right? Like, but not the source code. So that's compiled code that's always accessible to everybody. But the source code itself, you need to publish the source code probably on a GitHub or something like that. But the bytecode is accessible to everyone.
So only executables will be open to the
Correct,
world.
correct. The executable is like also a little bit like open source. It's not like C, C++, where it's impossible to deconstruct the code from the executable. But in this case, you can.
So in that case, say if somebody is charging, say you're charging for calling a function on your contract, like if I'm executing your contract, and people have to charge that money. So instead, I will, if I'm able to deconstruct based on the bytecode, I will just write the same contract and do it myself, right? Instead of making that payments to you.
Oh, no, no. You can, but let's say maybe okay. Actually, let me give you an example. So let's say you've written a program, right? You've deployed the smart contract. Ruchil has put in 100 ethers over there, like deposited 100 ethers. Subhash has deposited 100 ethers. And Subhash wants to like transfer 10 ether to Harsha. That's the computation, right? So single line of computation, which is like transfer money from Subhash to Harsha. If you like copy paste the entire source code onto a new program and deploy that, well, Subhash does not have 100 ethers in that bank,
Oh,
right? So that transaction will fail. So it's like where is all the data? That's what matters.
got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Oh, sorry, I got lost here. We are here, right?
Yep.
Now that
So
we've
yeah, that's the line.
started.
Yeah.
On the right side, you will see a tick on the console box, meaning that it has been deployed and the balance of the selected amount is now 99.99. This is the tick code. Oh,
No, scroll.
Yes.
Yeah, that's tick. Yeah.
okay. And balance is, yes, 99.99. Okay. This is because every deployment in Ethereum costs money. Every function call costs money. Okay. So this is the address. This is the account address of this contract, is it?
No. This is your account. This is like Harsha's account, right? So notice
My
the
money
first
only
three.
got reduced because I deployed
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
I also want you to
There is
notice.
the contract address.
Yeah. Harsha, go back. Yeah. So notice the first three characters, right? It's 5B3, right? But under deployed contracts on your left, on the left bottom of the screen,
Right.
the deployed contracts. So you see smart contract, smart bank account at 0xD91. So that 0xD91 is the address of your contract. Why don't you copy that?
Okay.
Yeah, and just paste it somewhere. So this is the address of your contract, and you can do the same with your account. You'll see that they are different. You can copy, yeah. Yeah, the thing to note over here is though both of them are different, but they look similar in the sense that their lengths are the same. They start with a 0x. So that's the format for an address.
In
It'll
terms
always
of
start with, yeah.
yeah, in terms of the account, right? Like there were 10 pre-populated account numbers, whereas the bank account number was generated like when we hit deploy. So
Correct,
is there a
correct.
logic? Is there a logic for the number to show up, or will it be different every time I hit deploy? Will it be the same? And how does that number get generated?
Yeah, for all practical purposes at this point in time, it is random. Like you will get a new address every single time. Every single time you hit deploy, you'll get a new address. Why don't you try it, Harsha? Um,
I deploy this again.
yeah, and scroll down further. Yeah, you see one more over there.
Yeah, this is different. True.
No, the one below that. At the bottom of the screen. Yeah. So this is the one that just got deployed.
This was the previous one, right?
Correct. Actually, I don't remember which one was the previous one. But anyways, yeah.
0x91 was the previous one.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah, so each time you hit deploy, you'll just get a new account address because it's a new program. Like you're saying, hey, here's one more program, start running it. So when you say, hey, here's one more program, you're also saying that, hey, here's one more program, also create an account for it because every program has an account, and hence their addresses will always be different.
okay. I have a very basic question here. So now whenever we are deploying, we are getting an address, right? Now, does that mean a code is present at this address? Now, when you mean that, is it a physical location where, like similar to AWS, where on a server somewhere it is running? Is that the case, or?
Yeah, in some essence, right? Like
That will be centralized, right? Again.
yeah, like the code actually is going to be running on everybody's computer. So there are like a million computers out there which are all going to be running this code the moment you hit deploy. Okay, so the moment you hit deploy, every single computer in the world is going to say, oh, Harsha has deployed a contract, let's run it. And they'll run it. And whenever somebody calls the function get contract balance, everybody in the world will go, oh, somebody, Ruchil has called contract balance, let's process it. And then what happens is all the computers. So let's say there are 1 million 1 million computers in the world which are going to be running this. They'll after run, everybody is going to run them independently, right? So the moment you hit get contract balance, every single computer in the world is going to run your piece of code, and then they'll vote amongst themselves, right? So let's say Ruchel's computer says, hey, get contract balance value is 5, but Subhash's computer says, hey, it is 2, and one of these two is malicious. Like one of these two is manipulating the code. But so how do you figure out, hey, is Ruchel saying the truth or is Subhash saying the truth? So all the 1 million computers will automatically have a vote, because like I have done the computation. My computation on my machine says the return should be 5. Subhash's also says 5, but Ruchel says 2. So I'll be like, hey, I vote for 5. I vote for 5, and everybody votes for 5. Ruchel has voted for 2. Like he'll be like declared as a liar, and people will just move on with 5. So that's some kind of a voting that happens. That's why it runs on like every computer. That's the decentralized part of it, in the sense that the code is actually run on every single computer, and there's no way to cheat the output of a particular code run, because there's a voting that happens immediately thereafter.
Got it. So basically, there are multiple folks who are voting that this is the right one and this is the wrong one, and the one with highest votes win.
Correct. I'm of course like simplifying a little bit, but that's the essence.
Now that you have deployed it, you'll be able to start calling the functions. On the right, you will see a tick balance is 99.99 because every deployment on Ethereum costs money. Every function call costs money. Okay. We will look at why it costs money in the later phase, because we need to understand how Ethereum works internally. Now that the program has been deployed, an account has been created for this program where it can hold money. Awesome. We can also start calling the functions we have written. To interact with the contract you have just deployed, you can tap on the arrow next to the contact address under the deployed contracts.
Hmm.
This one, right? Or the latest one.
I don't know which one is the latest one. So
The bottommost.
sure. Yeah.
We can start calling the functions we have written. To interact with the contract you have just deployed, you can tap on the arrow next to the contract address on the left bar under deployed contracts and hit the button that corresponds to the function that we have written, get contract balance. I tap this.
Yeah.
So whenever I execute any action, this is the tick mark is the output.
Yeah. So basically it's saying like at least one computer has run this code that you've requested it to run, which is, well, your own computer in this case.
Okay, we have asked for the contact address. Remix is creating this UI buttons. Okay.
Yeah.
Each time you deploy a contract, it deploys a new instance. You cannot upgrade an already deployed contract by default. I didn't understand this.
So we just hit deploy twice, right? And you got like two different addresses.
Okay. So it's not like you cannot update a deployed code.
Yeah.
You
Once
can't
it's out
edit
there,
the code, is it?
no, you can't.
Okay.
And
And
every
it-
time we do it, the account amount goes down.
Yeah. In fact, I just before this call, I was deploying a contract onto the main chain, and I just spent about $280 on deploying it. Fun fact, like about a month back, I deployed another contract that cost me about $150. And right after deploying, I realized there's a bug in my code. So I had to like, spend $150 again, which I didn't. I like, okay, fine, I'll take that.
Is it why blockchain developers are paid high?
Blockchain developers are paid high because there's just not enough blockchain developers in the world right now.
Okay.
The
Either
demand
you
supply
need to
problem.
write a error-free code before deploying, right? Earlier, we can
Yeah.
deploy any number of times we want. Need not be an
No,
option.
yeah, this is like previously you could write a code that could break, but previously you could not. What I mean by that is, in the era of CDs, like you can't ship buggy code. Like if Windows XP shipped some bug in Windows XP, and it has sent millions of CDs all over the world. Well, the only way to fix it is to launch Windows Vista.
Right.
But yeah, I think sorry, that's a indulgence, but yeah, there is no way to. In fact, there is a way to upgrade, but it's a little complex way to do it. By default, that's why it says by default. Like you cannot upgrade by default, so you need to do some crazy hacks to make it upgradable.
Okay.
But yeah, for the time being, we'll see that. We'll just assume that you can't upgrade these.
Cool. In a later quest, we'll see how to overcome this limitation. Okay, upgradable contracts. When you hit the button and call the function, you will see the return in the output on the console on the bottom right. Make sure you tap on the expansion to see the output logs. This one, right?
Correct.
And decoded output says 0. Is it because we gave this as 0?
Yeah. So what it returns whatever you've returned from your function. So you've returned a variable of type uint. So you see uint 256 in the output.
Yeah.
Down.
I just changed this to 1. Do you have to compile and then only deploy?
Yeah. You have to compile, then you have to deploy.
There are so many things on this particular screen. The checkbox one, it has transaction cost and execution cost. What is the difference between the two?
Sure. One second, let me come to your screen.
Cool, I got one.
Okay. So what are the other parameters over here?
Yeah.
So let us see what are the relevant ones, right? Okay, so from is like who called this function.
Mhm.
Let's look at it from go to Remix and check it from here.
Here, yeah,
It
this one.
says like 5B3. Yeah, just copy it, paste it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now copy your account address from the left.
Can't it be done from here?
No. From the left. You see that account drop down, right?
One, right?
Left में. No, not this. On the top, on the left में, top पे.
Huh?
Yeah,
This
वो
one?
वाला.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, so these two are the same, right? So basically, when you hit get contract balance, it kind of sent this request from your account. Like that's how Ethereum kind of identifies who asked us to run this function, right? So yeah, so the from is who sent the request to run this particular function.
Mhm.
So there's two is like basically which function do you want to call. Gas will like ignore for now. Like it's a pretty complex topic. We'll come back to it later. But largely gas is like the amount that you have to pay to run the function. So you see that the balance drops, right, from 100 to it went to 99.99. So that is because there is a transaction cost that you see on one of those lines. Yeah, input is basically the parameters to this particular function. The decoded output is the output that comes, the return that the function gives. Yeah,
And value is the value sent to the bank, right? Sent or
correct.
taken out from the bank.
Yes, we will come to that in just a bit.
Sure.
We need to know a few more things before we go there. I'll go back to Harsha's screen.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
Harsha, we're looking at your screen.
like in the meantime, I just changed the contract balance to 1. I compiled and deployed and tapped on contract balance. In the decoded output, it has shown 1, like just for the fun of it. Cool.
Awesome.
It is 0 right now because we have not sent any of our contract. Let us send some money in. And moving to the next sub quest. Add money to the contract. Do I have to delete? I'll close this.
Yeah. For every quest, you can open a new one.
Got it. 1 second. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, I can.
What would we have to do if we have to add some balance to a user? We'll create a function that takes parameter address of the user whose balance we want to update and a value by how much. That's exactly what this function does here. Okay. Sorry. Cool. Add balance is a function I'm assuming you're referring to in the quest. It's taking a address parameter and also amount parameter. Oh, address as an address parameter. Okay. Balances of user address is amount. Okay, whatever we are passing into this function, it is putting that as balance of that address as this amount. Total contract balance equal to existing plus that amount. So you have just increased the account balance by that amount, right?
Correct.
And this balances is a address to it's a dictionary or
Correct.
okay. So for every address there is a event, right? Like for every address there is some balance associated with it.
Yeah.
And by default, how are we giving that as 0? Okay.
So what is this mapping address to balances?
So basically,
Before-
we're going to maintain the balance of every user who is depositing money to our bank.
Got it.
Is that your question, Subhash?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Yeah, we're just maintaining who has deposited what, so that later we can actually allow them to withdraw as well, right? So for that, you need to store how much money they deposited in the first place.
How much they have deposited, or like this dictionary will contain every address and amount in that, balance
Yes.
amount in that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What would we do if you had to add some balance? We'll create a function. Okay, that's a function which we have created. That's exactly what this function does here. Let's compile this and deploy this. This for the UI button part, I think there is some code if we would have written if it's not for Remix, right?
Right.
So I'm compiling this subquest. Only warnings I see, so I'm measuring it. Nothing over here. I'll go. It's right now 100 ether. If I deploy, it has come down. Okay. And this is the deployed contract. Add balance. This is any amount, any unsigned integer which I can give, right?
Tap on the drop down first. Yeah, first parameter is address. Whose balance do you want
There are
to increment?
Yeah, there are two parameters, right? The user address and amount for add
Correct.
balance function.
Oh, right. So for the user address, I'm just copy pasting this address, my account address only.
Correct.
It is 99.99. I will add 100. I'm assuming this is in ether. Like if I say 100, it will add 100 ether, is it?
Why don't you try it?
Okay. Transact. Okay. Now I think it's only added. I'll tap on get contract balance. Decoded output says 100. Okay, initially it was 0. But initially, sorry, I think this. Okay. There is some issue. But initially here it was 99.99 ether, right?
Correct.
And I've added money into this account, and I've added.
No, you sent money to the bank account.
Correct.
You didn't
But
add.
I gave us this only, no?
Yeah. So here are two things. So one, you have your wallet, right, in your pocket, in which there's a 100 rupee note.
Okay.
And then there's a bank account in which, well, your money is stored. Right. So ideally, what you should do is like take out that 100 rupees from your wallet, give it to the banker, and that person will increment your bank account balance by 100. Right. So that's how it's typically supposed to work. There are two different things. Like if you send 100 rupees to the banker, the 100 rupees does not show up in your wallet, right?
Correct.
So the wallet is your account that you see on the top left.
This is my wallet amount in my wallet.
Correct.
And this account is like my bank account.
Yeah.
But when they asked for the address, I gave wallet address only, right? Here.
No, that's really your username, right? It's more like a username. So every wallet has a username, and that's kind of public information. So it's like your name, right? Like Harsha. So Harsha has exactly one wallet. Like you cannot have like 10 wallets. You can have only one wallet. That's that wallet.
Okay.
And you use that same name everywhere. Right? So you'll go to the bank and say, hey, increase the balance of Harsha by 100 rupees or 100 ether, whatever. So that's what we've done. Like we've taken the username, gone to the bank and said, hey, increase the balance of this particular user by 100.
Got it. I was assuming this to be 199.
Yeah.
This is a wallet address.
Correct. That's your username in some sense, right? And every username has like a
If I
well,
have to add money to this 99, what should I
uh,
have given as the address?
you can't do that. Like when you are doing anything with the smart contract. So look, now you're standing at the counter at the bank.
Huh?
Whatever you transact with that banker on the other side of the counter will only reflect in your account. It won't reflect in the wallet in your pocket, right?
Correct.
So that's what you're doing with by interacting with the smart contract. Everything that you do with the smart contract is a transaction between you and the bank.
Not the wallet.
It won't affect the wallet. At least not yet.
Okay. Okay. If this code also takes this wallet address somehow, then
Yeah, that's what we'll do next.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I've asked too many questions here.
No, it's good.
What would we have to do if you have to add some balance to a user? We'll create a function on this. This happened. Let's compile and deploy this. Once it's deployed, tap on add balance. This is what we have done. After doing that, tap the button, get contact balance. You'll notice that output says 1 million.
In your case, you put in 100, so I think it'll show 100.
Okay. Yeah, it has shown 100. Where did this come from? Okay. Yeah, 100 we just directly added to make sure there's a val. If money has come into this account, it must have gotten deducted from somewhere else, right? To make this a valid transaction, we need to add the following checks. Is the user calling this function allowed to update the account identified by the address in the parameter? What if someone calls this function with 0 as amount and overwriting a victim of all their savings? True. Oh, we are just replacing, right? We are not, but it won't affect, no? Here, we are anyways adding that amount. Like this.
Look at the previous line on the code. Line 14.
Oh, you are replacing that with amount. Sure.
So basically, like if like Ruchel can also now go to the bank and say, hey, update the balance of Harsha to 0.
Correct.
We've not put any check whether Harsha is the owner of this or not.
Or Rachel has the permissions to update. Does the user who is calling this function add balance even have the amount money that they're looking to add to the balance? Makes sense. If yes, for the above, has the money been debited from the account before it is credited? Makes sense. There's a lot of mess, of course. Ethereum lets you bypass all these checks. Crazy. Let's see how to write.
If this were an like actual bank, can I see a log of who sent the money and how much? Like, because right now I'm only able to see mine on Remix, what I'm doing with this account. Let's say Harsha, Subhash, we all sent, right? And can I see a log of all these transactions?
Yeah. Everything is public. All information, all these transactions will always be public.
Okay. And this cannot be done in testnet. It can be done in mainnet. Is that what you're saying?
It can like not in Remix. Like if you do a transaction on Remix and Harsha does a transaction on Remix, that will not reflect on each other. But once we deploy it outside, you'll be able to see each other's logs as well.
Got it.
Okay, so one of the things I want you to like also take notice is, Harsha, you put in like 100 as the amount, and that 100 amount did not get deducted from anywhere.
Correct. Like we just put in, yeah.
Yeah, but the banker has updated the balance of some account by 100, but has not received any 100 yet. Yeah. So that's something that is a major flaw in the code that we've written so far. You got to fix it.
Okay, I'm moving to the next sub quest. In this code, we have added a function called add balance. Function called add balance. First thing to note is the keyword payable. Yeah, this has a keyword payable. Okay. typically you only send parameters to a function call on other programming languages. On Solidity, you can send parameters and money to tell the compiler that this function is allowed to accept money. You add the modifier payable. If you have the payable keyword, you can start depositing money to this contract using this function. So if I have to add money into contracts account, that contract should have one of the functions with payable keyword, is it?
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Without payable, you can never send money
To this
to a
contract.
contract.
Same goes with withdrawal as well, right? Like withdrawing money as well, payable.
No, you don't need a payable for withdrawing.
Okay.
But however, there is a catch. I'll come to that in a bit. But broadly, no.
If you have the payable keyword, you can start depositing money to this contract using this function. How much money is being sent and the function called is denoted by the variable message.value. Okay, maybe after executing, I'll have some idea on this. Like directly, I do not get anything. Like in our compared to our previous code, here message.sender is there. Previously, we had amount or something, right?
Yeah, we had two parameters, that was user address and amount.
Correct.
So we got rid of the parameters, if you notice. Add balance does not have any parameters.
Correct. And address is also not there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So address is replaced by dot sender, amount is replaced by dot value.
Correct.
Okay. And balance is the same dictionary with address to unsigned. You are to tell the compiler that this function is allowed to accept money, you add the modifier payable. If you have the payable keyword, you can start depositing money to this contract using this function. How much money is being sent in this function call is denoted by the variable message.value. Okay. Who sent this message is denoted by message.sender. Okay. Message is a special object that Ethereum attaches with every function call that's made to a smart contract. Ethereum takes care of the user authentication under the hood. Like if it is a valid user address, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. For now, Remix takes care of the authentication on your behalf. However, we will need to explicitly authenticate when calling functions in production. It authenticates who is calling the function and stores the address of the user that's calling the function in a message.sender. If there is money being sent to the function call, Ethereum also guarantees that sender actually holds those many ethers. So if they have that money to even send that money. And if there is money being if there is money being sent to the function call, Ethereum also guarantees that the sender actually holds that many ethers, and when they are sending ethers to this function, the money has actually been deducted from their account. How Ethereum is able to do all this, we can safely ignore for this quest. We'll dig into the machinery itself in a later quest. Okay. So basically what a bank does, I think Ethereum is doing, right? Bank takes care as a ledger on who is giving the money, if it is deposited, if it is deducted from their account and credited to receiver's account.
Correct.
When this function is called, we update the balance of that user and total amount being held by this contract. Okay. We use mapping to store what is the balance of which user. A mapping is same as dictionary or map data structure, which you know from other programming languages. While defining the mapping, we define the key and value data types. The key over here is an address of the user who will be depositing money to the smart contract, and the value is an integer denoting how much money has been deposited into this contract. So who will define the denomination of this? Like, for example, if Ruchil wants to transfer 100 ether, but as a contract, I write it as Bitcoin. And if 100, like Ruchil is just putting the value 100, he assumes it's 100 ether, but I assume it's 100 BTC.
No, it's always ether. Okay. So message.value will always be in ethers.
Got it.
And what does message.sender take care of except what is written in this quest? Like you've mentioned authentication. Who is calling? How much do I have that money? Is there something else as well that it takes care of?
No, the only thing that message.sender is used for is to make sure that it's populated correctly based on who is calling this function, right? So if you like change the account and like hit call the function again, it will change the message dot sender basically. But let's say a malicious world, if there is some way to kind of update message dot sender for a particular function call, so that's not possible, right? So Ethereum kind of takes care that it's impossible to tamper with that message dot sender object. So it's basically going to give you the address of the account from which this particular function was called. Basically the username. Who called this function? Okay, Harsha called this function. Okay, let me do what I'm supposed to do on Harsha's account.
And can we propose something to add to like or add functionalities to message dot something?
No.
Okay.
Message is an object that is like a standard on Ethereum. So there are a few more other than message.sender and message.value, but you can't add anything to that. If you want to add some other variables, you have to send it as a parameter.
Okay.
Okay. The key over here is an address of the user who is depositing money to the smart contract. Okay. In the dictionary, the key is the dictionary key, right? You're referring to.
Yeah.
And value is an unsigned integer denoting how much money has been deposited into this contract. We'll be storing this information so that when they decide to withdraw it, they know how much money they are entitled to withdraw. We will also update the total amount being stored in this contract. Next, let's compile and run a payable function. We didn't compile this yet, right? What did add balance do? Add balance is not taking any parameters, right?
Correct. Go back to your quest. I think it will tell you how to run it.
What? I didn't get you. It just said
next the quest.
Compile the program just like we did. You'll see that there are two functions in the deployed contract. The payable function is of different color from that we had written earlier.
Red color.
On the left. Add balance is red.
Okay. From the one we had written earlier, to call this function, we need to add some money. For that, pick an account from the drop down, pick how much money you want to send to the contract. From this address in the box called value, choose ethers as the denomination. Okay,
about that.
transaction?
About deploy.
Okay. Here we are transferring 10 ether.
So you're saying 10 way?
Make it 10 ether.
Yeah, made ether. What is this contract? This is our address only.
That's the contract. That's not the address. That is the contract that needs to be deployed, kind of a thing. The UI sucks. It should not be there.
So I can ignore this?
Ignore this.
Okay.
Just put the value as 10 ether and hit add balance.
Okay. Added.
So there is a
now,
there is no default output for the add balance has no return value, right? It's
now do get account balance.
It should give total contract balance.
You'd expect 10, right?
1 second. Message dot value. I think that dot value was 10 is what it took. And yeah, but where did it add? Like here it is just returning total contract balance, which is 0, no?
You incremented it on line 15.
Okay. It should, show 10 ether.
Why can't we so this is one of the ways, right? Like in the previous code, why can't we, there could have been another way, right? Like which is we didn't mention in the previous code when we were not using message.sender, we could have just mentioned the account number, that this is the account that we're deducting from, and account balance minus the amount that we are sending. So that's another way to do it, right?
Actually not. That's a good point. Good question. So imagine again, we'll go back to our analogy. Harsha has $100 in his wallet, in his physical wallet that he carries in his pocket, and he goes to the banker and says, "Hey, I want to deposit $100 to my account." The banker does not have access to Harsha's wallet. Like they can't like forcefully like pull out the $100 from his wallet, can they? So basically, the banker has access only to the accounts inside the bank.
Okay.
So they cannot do anything outside of the bank, right? So unless Harsha himself voluntarily gives $100 to the banker, there's no way money can transfer from Harsha to the banker, or rather to the bank. So when you do, let's say we'll try to see how we would do what you said, right? Like we'll say, hey, reduce the balance of Harsha's account by $100 or how much ever he put in.
Yeah.
But the contract does not have access to Harsha's physical wallet that's on the left. So it cannot modify anything on the wallet. It can only modify the accounts that have been created inside this contract.
Got it.
So it can update the balance. Yeah, it can
And how
update the
is-
balance of the account inside the bank.
And how is it getting the access now? Like because the amount deducted on the left side. So
Yeah.
is it the message object that is sort of getting the access? Like
Oh, so it still does not have access. So when we put in the value as 10 ether, and when we hit that add balance, Ethereum did it for us. Like Ethereum deducted 10 ether from Harsha's physical wallet and like sent it to the function.
got it. So would this be a correct rephrase? Like if we were doing it in isolation, contracts and the wallet, right? They don't talk. But if we bring like message.sender in the picture, they are both a part of the Ethereum ecosystem. So hence they
Correct.
can talk to each other.
Correct. So Ethereum is like bridging the gap between those two by saying that, hey, okay, I have taken care of it. Like I am taking care of the transaction by populating message.send and message.value. So yeah, both of them can treat that as a source of truth.
Got it.
Mary, I am getting an error here. Can you have a look at it?
Sure.
This is creation of smart bank error.
Yeah, I'm looking at your code right now. It says okay.
Called function should be payable.
Oh, okay. I think I just hit deploy once more. I'll tell you what happened.
So here I'm making it like
that you have to keep as 0. First
Okay.
deploy it,
okay.
and now on the deployed function there is a add balance button.
Add balance.
Now
okay.
before you hit add balance, you update value on the top. Before you hit add balance, update it to 10 ether.
Got it. So that's confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible UI. Sorry about that.
Okay. Now I get it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Going
I
on
was
to
on mute.
Harsha's screen.
Yeah, I was on mute. So
Harsha, I'm on
after,
your screen again. Yeah.
yeah, after I tapped on get account balance, I was assuming I would get 10 ether, but this is
Yeah. Yeah. You can go back to the quest. That's what we'll explain next.
the number you entered in the value text box is the amount of money you're going to send. You'll see that there are two functions. The function add balance is of different color. Okay. Hey, sorry if I'm rereading this. Like, we can send money to this function. To do that, input box value above the deploy. Type in a value and select ethers. This is how much you'll be sending. Now tap on the add balance button in the contract. Did that. Ticked in the console, you'll see that balance had been reduced from the account you choose. We didn't see that.
Yeah, go back to your remix. Your balance is now 89 instead of 99.
Okay, got it. You see it reduced. There's also message.value gets set. Ethereum takes care of the logistics like deducting money of even populating the message.object. You as a developer don't have to worry about it. It's good. If you hit the get contract balance, you'll see that it has now become non-zero. You'll see that the number is much larger than the number of ethers you sent. Yes, this is because all transactions happen in the smallest possible denomination of ethers called V. V, that is how we spell it out, is it?
Yeah,
Into
maybe, I don't know.
minus 18 ether. Okay. Now that we have money, how do we generate interest? Awesome. Oh, so
Yeah,
we have
I
put
think.
money into the account. Cool.
Yep, I think this is a good point for us to break and just take any questions. Probably we can do rest of the quest in one more session. What do you think? We are like halfway through right now.
Okay. Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Any questions thus far?
Oh, I have asked real time.
Awesome.
I think it will be like, it will be really exciting to see this in like every one sending money into the contract, and then seeing everyone's like account number or name as to how much money. Yeah.
Oh, that we can do. That we can do right over here instead of like everybody sending. So Harsha, why don't you do this?
Mhm.
Add balance. Oh damn, we have not created the function to see the balance.
We have get account balance, right? Which
We have get account balance on the top.
But that's like of the contract. That's the contract balance.
which balance
Let's.
are you referring to?
I want the user's balance, like balances of message.sender. Can you create one more function that says function get balance?
Sender balance, is it?
Okay, get sender balance, and take a parameter of address. And maybe user address, variable name.
I didn't get you.
Actually, why don't I share my screen? I'll share my screen.
Should I stop share here?
Sure. Hey, can you see my screen?
I'm stop sharing my
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. So I will open the same quest. This is the one. Oh, damn, why is it so slow? I think it's because I'm also recording the video.
So how will you?
Yeah,
How do you know which
all
one
of
is
this?
there?
Never mind. It's there in the URL. Yeah, we should edit all this part out probably. I don't know. Okay, so this is the contract that we had, right? Like I'm going to add one more function just for answering Virgil's question. We're going to say function get user balance. So this get account balance, this should actually have been get contract balance. And we're going to do contract get user balance. So basically we want to ask the banker, hey, how much money does Richard have? Right. So and we're going to say which user. We're going to say address, user address, returns. Well, the balance is going to be a uint. So we're going to say uint. Um, and yeah, return balances of user address. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will. Oops.
Public.
Yeah. Now I'll deploy this. Sorry, I compiled it using a shortcut, but I'll compile it from here. And I deployed it. Now now what I'm going to do is send 10 ether from account this one, right? AB8, I'm sending 10 ether, add balance. That's done. Now I'm going to select some other account. I'm going to send 5 ether from here, add balance. Let's say 7 ether from third account. So basically now I've simulated Ruchel sending 10 ether, Harsha sending a couple of ether, Subhash sending like 7 ether. I forgot what numbers they were. So now
5.
let's
10, 5, and 7.
Yeah, it's 10, 5, 7. Yeah. So let's see if that has reflected on the bank as well. So this is like the first account from which I send money. That was 10 ethers. So the value is like little less than 10. So yeah, I'll copy this address. Let's go check out the address. In fact, let's get the contract balance first, right? The contract balance is 22. So that's like 10 plus 7 plus 5.
5.
Right?
Awesome.
So that's correct. So 22. That's awesome. So we've added money from all 3 accounts. So that's fine. So now let's do get user balance of the first account that I send money from. So this should be 10 ethers, right? So yeah, so this is 10 ethers. And now let's change the account. Let's see somebody else's account. I'll copy this address, go and paste this, get user balance, and yeah, it should be visible to the 5 ether over here. So instead of like waiting for people to like call this function from different parts of the world, what I've simulated over here is by like changing the account from here, I'm basically simulating a new person, right? So each of this account is a new person. Typically, one user would have like one account from which they would do the transactions, but over here, because we do not have access to multiple users being able to call the same functions, so we're just simulating it on this VM itself.
Is there a way to see the entire ledger, like account number 1, amount 1? So you're doing it individually one by one, right? So is there a way to
Correct.
see all 3 of them together?
You'll have to define a map, I guess.
Yeah, you'll have to write the logic for
Or
that
we
as
can
well.
print this balances, right?
Oh, there's
as
no way
the
to
for
print.
loop.
Yeah, there's no way to print ons already.
Oh, okay.
Like you can't do something like what do you do on right? Print
So
it.
just again, going back to this decoded output,
Mm-hmm.
it's 5 followed by what, 17 zeros?
18 zeros, yeah, it should be. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
18. Okay, so this is V, right?
Yeah, this is 5 ether denominator displayed
5
in
into
V.
10 to the power of 18.
18.
V.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back, Harsha's question, sorry, Ruchel's question, you can't like print all of it. You'll have to write some logic like this. But yeah, typically so that's not how you do it on Solidity. It's like yeah, you just request for individual person's address and see if what the balance is in real time.
But
If you want to maintain a ledger of all the things, then you would not do it on Solidity. You like do it somewhere else. That's the point. But we'll look at that little later.
Got it.
Yeah, Harsha, you're saying something.
No, I was saying like something like pool together. Uh, they will have to collect all the users' amount, take money from their account, put them at one place, and run an interest and give it back, right?
We'll see in the next quest. That's not how it works. So for loops, like you'll very rarely see for loops
Yeah.
on Solidity, right?
Got it.
Because for loops are expensive. Expensive as in like every line of code that gets executed costs money. And we're going to write a for loop. That single line of code is going to get executed 1,000 times, 100 times, whatever. So it's going to be very expensive. So you will see for loops. They exist in Solidity, but it's usually an anti-pattern.
So when will this money get deducted? Is it during deploying, or deploying money is different and each line of code cost is different?
They cost money because of the same reason, because there is some code being executed. So every computer is running the code that you're deploying, right? And for running the code, I am spending electricity.
Right.
So I need to be compensated for it. How do you compensate me for it?
So if
That's why
Subhash is running your function, Subhash is running a smart function in your smart contract, Subhash will be paying that money to the people who are running that code.
correct.
Right? And you will only run this when you are deploying it. Like you will only pay from your
Yeah.
pocket only when you're deploying.
So the only piece of code that I am running when I'm deploying it is the instruction called deploy. So that's like one line of code, right? That's the instruction that I'm running.
Got it.
And if there's a constructor in a class, that it has like some logic inside it that also gets executed when I deploy. So every line of code that I write in the constructor will also cost me money.
Makes sense. Cool. That's all I have, Rachel, Subhash.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. This was good. I think it was pretty long, actually. Glad that you asked all these tough questions. Yeah, I think this is a good pace for us to go forward from here.
Awesome.
Probably next time we should keep it a little shorter, but yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think
Yes,
so
Subhash.
the first time, right? So there are a few things which are not obvious.
Yeah.
Next time onwards, we can dive deep more into the program-related stuff than the paraphernalia.
Yeah. I think from now on, it'll be more code related. There will be a lot of questions. I wouldn't deny that, but it will at least be code related. And also, I think I also need to figure out a way to be a little bit more concise with my answers.
Another thing
Yeah.
is if we can like look at the questions that we already have in GitLab and ask those, right, so that we don't miss out on good questions as well.
Sure. Let me stop recording here. Awesome. Good stuff. Chalo. See you then. Bye. I need to figure out how to stop this. Bye. Okay. I hope it doesn't kill me.